This week's episode brought to you by Pillbox, the pill delivery service with no prescription required. Did the angle leave your dangle? Are you always tired? Maybe you just need to tune in, turn on, and drop dead. Pillbox has the solution for you. This monthly subscription service sends prescription meds straight from Peru and sometimes Nicaragua to your front door. Is it legal? Could we advertise with such a reputable podcast if it weren't? Pillbox. Grab a handful and go. Hello and welcome to Horror Movie Talk, an opinionated and accidentally funny horror movie review show. Your schlubby hosts each week are Bryce Hansen, the cool collected nihilist, and David Day, a sick fuck who is always near death. New theatrical releases always get priority, but we also review older horror movies, both good and horrible. I'm David Day.
And I'm Bryce Hansen.
And I am so sick. Oh my gosh.
Your whole family's a nightmare right now.
It's been gross. Let me tell you the things I do for our listeners, but I'm here infecting Bryce and his family in his home for you. So, today we'll be talking... I'm super excited today.
Super excited. It's going to... Regardless, it's a great episode today.
I'm very excited. Because today we'll be talking about the summer of '84, which is a... actually, it's gotten a lot of talk, a lot of hype around this movie, and it's a Shudder exclusive made for and by Shudder, or AMC, who owns Shudder.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. True story. Yeah, and that's interesting to you, I assume, because you've also heard a little bit of hype about this movie.
Well, I remember when it came out. It came out August of last year, and there was definitely a little buzz about it. I didn't realize that it was so closely related to Shudder, but it makes sense because it was a Shudder exclusive pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And it only had a limited release when it was in theaters.
Yeah. Oh, this was in theaters?
Yeah, it was in Portland. We went and saw The House That Jack Built instead.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll be damned.
I
don't think this ever hit theaters.
I'm pretty sure that's what I remember.
Professionals, folks. We're professionals.
Yeah. I don't know.
So we'll start out by giving a brief review and our score for the movie. We score on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being bad, 10 being great, 5 being totally average. After we give our score, we'll get into spoilers and take a deeper dive into what we liked and hated about the film. Later in this episode, we'll be playing a game called Lifetime Movie or Horror Movie, where I read the description of a movie, and Bryce has to guess whether that's a description of a horror movie or a Lifetime movie. I've been thinking about the way this game works a little bit, and I'd like to add a little bit of a parlay onto it, or a little bit of an extra rule, where if you can actually guess the name of the movie being described, you just win the whole thing.
Okay.
And it makes kind of the rest of the game superfluous.
I also think we need to expand it beyond Lifetime. We can keep the name, but we should probably include, Hallmark movies.
Ooh, oh God.
There's got to be some other production companies that make Lifetime-esque movies.
Hallmark movies are like Lifetime movies on crack.
Right.
Which B.J. Novak in The Office said, I love it when people who've never done crack talk about how things are like things on crack.
Right.
I love that line. B.J. Novak's such a dick in that show. Hate him. I love to hate. That's how I know he's probably the best character, is because I hate him. Anyway, so yeah.
It's also impressive that he was one of the main writers on that show, so that he, as a writer, made himself the dickest character.
It is very interesting knowing that. Yeah, the producer and writer, I think, of the show. A made man because of that show, basically. My child has a book written by him, and it's very bad.
Bad? I thought it was a cool concept.
It's one of those conceptual books that it sounds cool, and is cool to an extent. Anyway.
Yeah.
Later in the episode, we will also be doing some horror movie news, and don't worry, we're following up on the hot poop talk from last week. We're gonna be discussing in depth on what has happened to Bryce's bowels, and
excited. I'm so excited for this episode.
Giving you an update from there, because
inquiring minds want to know.
Right. So if you recall, if you didn't catch us last week, Bryce had an impaction.
I mean, we should probably save it for later.
About a week-long impaction. So we're just going to be catching up on that later in the episode, teasing that. But first, we're going to plug our website, horrormovietalk.com. Check us out there. We have write-ups for every episode, blogs, and also you can find us on social media, where we're probably most active on Twitter and Facebook. Also got the Gram, which, not so active on there, but by all means, hit us up and we'll do our best not to ignore you. We post new episodes every Wednesday, so subscribe and leave a review on the podcast delivery service of your choice. iTunes and Stitcher would be great to leave reviews on, just saying. We also joined the Amazon Associates program, which means you can support us by just going to our website, horrormovietalk.com, clicking on the green button at the top of the page, and then click, and that brings you to Amazon. And then from there, just buy anything you want on Amazon. And if you want to really help us out, you can bookmark that link and use it as your portal to Amazon forever. That gives us a little way to wet our beaks. Also, if you would like to support the show, and I should mention that this movie is exclusively available on Shudder, I believe, you can go to Shudder, enter our code at checkout, HMT, and you get a free 30-day trial to try out Shudder and see if it's something you'd like to subscribe to for an annual pass, which is only like $3 a month if you pay for a year. So
yeah, that's HMT for Hose Mean Trouble.
Hose Mean Trouble. HMT at checkout at Shudder. So thanks again for listening, and let's get into the show. So we went and saw Shudder in our homes. Streamed it. Saw Shudder. We went and saw the summer of '84.
We went nowhere and saw Shudder.
We went nowhere, saw Shudder, and watched Summer of '84 on it, and it was nostalgia-rific. This was a movie very much like what is it called? Adventureland and Stranger Things and all these. The Turbo Kid, all these movies that Ready Player One.
Well, I mean, that's kind of a stretch. It's an 80s nostalgia.
I'm not saying it's just like Turbo Kid. I'm saying the goal of this movie is to deliver nostalgia into your brain.
Right. Yes, this is true.
Okay. So without further ado, let's play the Summer of '84 trailer.
The sheriff's office reports they're likely looking for a white male. Preferred targets appear to be males aged 12 to 16.
It's a serial killer.
The Cape May Chronicle received a letter from an individual calling themselves the Cape May Slayer.
There's a serial killer on the loose. What else could possibly be this exciting? Incoming titties. 12 o'clock. Guys, Nikki Keshuba. Scientifically the perfect woman.
Huh. Better view of my room than I thought. Sweet dreams.
Emergency meeting. Treehouse. Now, Mackie is the Cape May Slayer. Mackie's a cop with a sick reputation. Isn't counting on us. That's blood.
Davey.
Hey.
Guys, I'm freaking out, okay?
Relax.
You look like you're 30. It's gonna be fine. Now go.
You're gonna get caught either by Mackie or your dad. I know I'm right about him. That doesn't prove anything. Are you with me?
I don't want anything bad to happen to you.
We're trying to save people. Yeah, well, you're not.
Guys on station are gonna love this.
Just let it go.
Sorry again that you're grounded. Let's see if I can get you out of this house. No hard feelings.
You were wrong. You're wrong about everything.
American serial killers live next door to somebody.
Summer of '84 can be found on Shudder right now. You can check it out there. Enter HMT at checkout. It is a story. The synopsis of Summer of '84 is teenager Davy Armstrong is mired in conspiracy theories and basically weekly world news articles. Davy begins to suspect that a neighboring police officer is a serial killer who targets kids in the Cape May, Oregon area, which, might I add, is made up, called the Cape May Slayer. So he thinks that his neighbor, who is a cop, is also a serial killer. And with some help from his friends, Davy begins investigating the perp, which eventually turns into a dangerous game of cat and mouse. Summer of '84 was a pretty fun nostalgia trip. It isn't crazy or pandering, as crazy or pandering as movies like Turbo Kid or Ready Player One, which really seek to like soak you in nostalgia, like dip you in a vat of nostalgia. This is just kind of more low key, similar to similar to Stranger Things, similar to Adventureland, I believe it is.
I don't know what Adventure. Oh,
that was
the theme park.
Yes.
One.
Yeah,
Adventureland. I know the one you're talking about. Yeah, that's probably the title. Yeah, I think even Stranger Things delves into the pandering territory
a little bit more,
because it's very much. I mean, just the whole concept of Stranger Things is like, let's take every Stephen King adaptation and adapt it
exactly
into one show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it doesn't feel as pandery in Summer of '84, but it's definitely there. Like the synthwave music, all the arcade games, bowling alleys,
there wasn't as many like pop culture call outs in this movie as there is in, some of those other movies that are specifically created to pander.
Right.
But there is hey, let's go to my house and watch Close Encounters.
Yeah, but in different ways, like the structure of the character structure is set up more like an '80s movie than any of the previous.
Yes.
Than any of the previously mentioned. Like the character structure in this movie is straight ripped from an actual '80s movie.
Right. Yeah.
So,
including the love interest that is inexplicably. Attracted to this young boy.
What does that doesn't make any, that's the least believable part of this whole thing.
Yeah. We'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
So, Summer of '84 takes a close look at a boring old summer turned exciting, aka dangerous. It's very similar in feel to kind of Stranger Things, like I've mentioned several times now, and I can't stop. This movie is...
It's also like Stranger Things.
Right. This movie is kind of a mashup of Rear Window meets The Burbs meets Stranger Things.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I wrote down Rear Window first thing.
Yeah, me too. What's that kind of recent remake of Rear Window?
Oh, with like Justin Long or
yeah,
one of those.
It sounds like Suburbia, but it's
Suburbicon.
Yeah, but it's like Terrifia or like Spooky. We need to find out now.
Let's just keep making up names. Terriburbia. Horburbia.
Scaradelphia. Philadelphia.
Suburbland Horrifica. It had Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, it did have Shia LaBeouf.
Disturbia. We're so close.
So close. Yeah, Disturbia. So while Summer of '84 slumps a bit in the middle, it really impresses me that an outfit as small as Shudder, even though they are backed by AMC, managed to pull off such a high-quality production. In fact, all of the made-for-Shudder exclusives that I've watched so far have been worth my time. I have not felt ripped off one time watching a Shudder exclusive. So I'm giving this a 7 out of 10. What say you, Bryce?
Not
into the mic.
Not quite. I mean, I don't want to say you're wrong, but is this was this really made by Shudder? Like, because I usually it's marked like if it is a Shudder production, it's marked something different than if it's just an exclusive.
I don't know.
It might be tangentially related. This is not important, but it doesn't matter. But my score for it, this is what you were actually asking, not asking me to tell you you're wrong. I don't know. I wasn't super impressed with it. And there's a bit of 80s nostalgia. What's it called? I'm just getting tired of it.
Yeah.
Fatigue.
Yeah.
80s nostalgia fatigue. I tried to like set that aside and just view it as its own thing.
Yeah.
That being said, I only think it's slightly better than an average movie. I'd give it a 6.
Yeah.
I think it's on par with Happy Death Day to You because they're good for different. They're better than average for different reasons. This one is very like middle of the road in terms of plot and setup. It's a very simple idea that's been done before. It might not have been done really recently, but it's a movie that I've seen at least 5 times, and it always ends up being like, okay, well, how are they going to end it? And you have to wait till the ending, and then you're like, okay, is this unique? Did they do a good job of wrapping it up? And I think they did a slightly better than average job of wrapping it up, but throughout it was a little slow.
It does have some pacing issues.
Took their time a little too much and didn't really explore some of the kind of interesting things or create as much doubt or conflict as they could. It was more of like, we believe this and we believe it the whole time, and then here's evidence.
Right.
And then here's stuff that contradicts it. But we still believe it. Like there's the main character never doubts himself, which makes it a lot less interesting to me.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie to you. All of the things you said are completely valid. And I struggled with, like, for me, I was just flip-flopping between a 6 and a 7 on this for a long time. And if it's a 6 for me, it's a high 6, but it's not. I think for me, this is a low 7.
Yeah.
I kind of, which brings me to something that I thought about a lot, specifically because of this film, which is I kind of wish we had a 0 to 100 score thing because it makes so much more. It's so hard to pin down, even in a scale of 10.
Well, that's funny because like the standard is 4 stars. You know, if you look at 4 or 5, is it 4 or 5 stars?
I think it's 5.
It's usually.
Oh, is it 4?
I think it's 4.
That's the okay
because. You know, or, I mean, I guess Rotten Tomatoes is on a scale of 100, but that's a different thing altogether. But, yeah, I mean, it's weird that, well, and then there's Siskel and Ebert. It's just like 2.
Yeah, it's good or bad,
yeah,
up or down.
Yeah, but...
Because for me, this would be a 70. If this was out of 100, this would be a 7-0.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's obviously subjective. But to me... I think when I get into 7 territory, I get into the territory where I start getting excited about referring people to watch it.
Yeah.
And saying like, you should definitely watch this movie. It's worth watching. And I'm just not in that territory for this one. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's an okay movie. Like it's good. It's not a waste of time to watch, but I'm not going to go out and say like, this is a good movie. Like I want people to watch it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think for me, this is a good movie. Because I still kind of like the 80s hype train.
Yeah,
and I like what they did with the end. The end was great.
Yeah.
On this.
Yeah, there's lots of good things about it.
Yeah.
It's not particularly exceptional to me, but I mean, I did like it. And I would say, like, yeah, it's worth seeing, but I'm not,
like
like
emphatic about it.
Yeah, I'm not going to think about it a lot.
That's
afterwards.
Yeah. So with that, let's move into spoilers so we can talk about exactly why this is what it is. Spoilers. So the first beat for me, I'm always impressed when a movie seeks to create a new town that doesn't exist in real life, and Ipswich, Oregon, is that, because I immediately I was like, oh, there's a town in Oregon called Ipswich.
Yeah, or what was it?
Cape May.
Cape May.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I looked it up and I couldn't find it on Google Maps.
Right. I was completely bamboozled, 100%. And I'm a native Washingtonian who lives, a couple minutes from the Oregon border. So,
right.
So I'm pretty familiar with Oregon, pretty darn familiar, and so I bought in 100%. And the effort when movies seek to make a real life place that doesn't exist, so a fake place like Stephen King's universe. When movies seek to do that, and they go to this extent to make it, so they put like Ipswich on the badges of the police officer, and they put Ipswich on the police cars, and they put Ipswich on all the signs, and they put Ipswich on every the bowling alley, and it's like, God, that's a lot of effort to make like a cohesive little town universe that doesn't really exist.
I mean, even more impressive is just doing any period piece. Like, can you imagine just having anything in the frame not be older than the 80s?
Yeah, I mean, it seems crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's the magic of movie filmmaking.
But why though? Why would you do this to yourself? There are real towns on real capes that exist in Oregon. You can just do that. Go ahead. Yeah. Use their sign that says Newport. Go for it.
And it's filmed in Vancouver, British Columbia.
Is it really?
Just like everything that's based in Oregon or Washington.
Oh, probably some sort of tax thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is some stuff that gets filmed in Portland, and it's always like everyone's excited, like, oh yeah, it's in Portland, like this is the native production, let's go watch it. And then it's always like,
Doogie Howser's going to be walking around Portland. See if you can spot him.
Yeah. I remember back in the day, it was the
what was that shit? Grimm.
Oh yeah, Grimm was filmed in the Pacific Northwest, but the movie that I remember, lots of buzz about, because Benicio del Toro and Tommy Lee Jones were in the area, was Hunted? The Hunted or something like that?
All right.
Yeah, no one saw it. It was not a great movie.
See,
apparently.
I was around for the filming of The Road, The Road.
Yeah, I guess that's the most notable.
With Viggo.
Yeah.
In fact, he was on land that I was a public servant on, so kind of a big deal. I saw some cameras one day. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're easily impressed by production.
Yeah, the sets in this movie were really well done. Their ability to maintain that this was the 80s was great, which is always impressive to me in these period piece movies, even if the period is only the 80s. Mm-hmm. Like, that's still 30 years. That's 30 years. Like, that's pretty crazy to think of being able to, really pull it off. Because, I mean, everybody can still remember the 80s. You got lots of critical eyes looking at this going, that's not from the 80s. But they did it admirably.
Yeah, it's crazy to think, like, 84, I was 2.
Uh-huh.
And what was 35 years before 84?
Whoa.
It was like into the 50s.
You just blew my mind.
It's like...
Wow, it was 50, yeah.
Before the Beatles.
God damn. So old.
Yeah.
Wow.
We're old.
Yeah, so I was born in the summer of 84. So kind of a big deal there. This movie, maybe that's why this movie resonated with me more than you.
That got an extra point from David.
I was like, I got to give it the old looky-loo because I was born then. So, the soundtrack is pretty much exactly what you would expect it to be, with lots of edgy sort of synthwave and Kavinsky-esque tracks. in the original score. There was also a song that I love, and I say I love it, but I can't remember what it was, and I can't find it. And I looked for a good 15 minutes last night to try and figure out what.
Is it the one where they're on the bikes?
I think so. It wasn't an original score. It was a song from the 80s.
Yeah. Was it the Bananarama one?
I don't know. You were so much older than me in the 80s, so you'd probably remember.
Cruel Summer? Is that the one you're thinking of?
Cruel Summer. Yeah. Yep. That's it. Yeah. Like that song a lot.
Yeah, they actually made a note in IMDb that Cruel Summer by Bananarama plays while they're riding their BMXs, exactly the same positioning in The Karate Kid, with Daniel LaRusso riding his BMX to the same song.
Yeah, those BMX bikes.
So it's tapping into the subliminal 80s nostalgia.
Yeah.
Right there, because it's stealing directly from Karate Kid.
Hyperliminal. Those bikes, those BMX bikes back then were just called bikes. Bikes. And they remind me exactly of my first bike. Like I had a diamond. What do you call it? Diamondback that was exactly those bikes.
Yeah.
So that brought things back for me. Let's look at the main character, Davy, played by Graham Verschere of The Good Doctor. He played the young autistic guy who was... Do you remember The Good Doctor? The show about an autistic doctor who was good at being a doctor because he was autistic?
Oh, no. I just saw like the trailers and I was like, oh, this is so fucking dumb. I love how they make autism a superpower.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're not wrong. Exactly. So Davy is the quintessential 80s movie star character. Like, think Elliot from E.T., the extraterrestrial. He's slight of build. He's relatable to the everyman, dorks, but not jocks. He's skinny, so he can't be a jock. And basically, he's the human equivalent of vanilla ice cream. There is no one more milquetoast than Davy.
That is one of the things about 80s movies that I think that's one of the reasons why they're seen as this resurgence of the 80s aesthetic is so refreshing.
Right. They did it right.
Is that specifically they do kids in movies pretty good.
Accurately.
Like I don't remember the kids in movies being super accurate to my age, but they were definitely more interesting than kids in movies now, to where like kids in movies are always everyone's super smart and quippy and like has the Joss Whedon dialogue and they talk like they're in their 20s.
Yeah.
And the 80s did a much better job of
honest portrayal of a kid,
making kids like unsure. And
I think it had something to do with who was really spending their money at the theaters, then versus now. I think now you got a lot of 30 and 40-year-olds spending their money at the theaters, and
right.
And now but in the 80s it was that's why slashers picked up, is because kids in high school were excited to go see something titillating.
Yeah.
And they wanted somebody who they could kind of relate to. And so characters were the kid characters were much more honest, and the adult characters were much more goofy. Like, look at the Burbs.
Yeah. I wrote down in my notes, adults in the 80s were assholes.
They were so stupid.
Every single adult in the 80s, in
Fucking
80s movies
adults,
are
man.
like either they just won't listen to kids, or they're just incredibly dumb when it comes to like logic.
So I think I need a little bit more, a pat on the back for making that observation, because it's pretty dead on.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
What?
Okay. Davy's 3 friends fill the appropriate roles. He has 3 friends, and they are the following. You have the nerd, Curtis, and he is a nerd. You have the bad boy, Tommy, who is a bad boy. He wears leather, and he talks about...
And he's sarcastic.
He's so sarcastic and edgy. And then you have Fatty 2x4, played who is Caleb, played by Dale Woodworth. And so you have all your stereotypical characters. Slow, fat boy, you have the dork, and then you have the bad boy. And then you have totally vanilla Davy. Like Davy who has nothing.
Right.
He is almost genderless if it weren't for the fact that he was the excitement of the super hot girl next door.
Yeah.
The friends all provide humor in the movie via Boys Will Be Boys style masturbation and your mom jokes.
That was one question I had. I don't remember your mom jokes being in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like, I remember very specifically that became a theme with the emergence of hip hop and in the early 90s,
well,
late
what would
80s.
you know? You were 8 in 1990. So, I mean, you still loved your mom. Do you still love your mom?
I still love my mom.
Oh, okay.
But I don't remember seeing your mom jokes in movies. You know, I mean, I watched lots of movies back then. I don't remember it being a thing in the 80s.
Yeah, no, not so much. But so we're referring to a lot. So Caleb, the fatty 2x4, his mother was a smoke show. She was a good looking lady, and all the other boys were just like, ow, like, you know, they were constantly making advances to Caleb about his mom, and so that might do a little bit to explain what you're talking about. But yeah, I think you're probably right. Your mom jokes maybe not so prevalent in the 80s. You know what? If we have any listeners who are so fucking old that they remember the 80s well, then you should tell us if your mom jokes were a big deal.
Yeah.
In the
If
80s.
you were 14 or 15 in the 80s.
Oh my God,
in
so
in
old.
early 80s. Tell us if you told your mom jokes.
Yeah. I'm interested to know.
Yeah.
Hit us up at Horror Movie Talk on Twitter.
Okay, so now let's talk about the neighbor, the hottie.
Yeah, Nikki is the neighbor / heartthrob, played by the beautiful Tira Scovby.
So this is one of the 80s tropes that does not quite translate into modern films, where it's like, hey, this hot girl, let's
peek at her.
peep on her
Peep.
as she's undressing, and then she catches me, and then the realistic portrayal would be,
Stay away from me, you creep.
hey, creep, I saw you creeping on me, stop creeping, creep.
Yeah.
And instead she's like, she just randomly, like,
She
comes
shows up at his house at like 1 a.m.
for no reason.
and she's like, hey, baby. And he's like, whoa. Yeah, it was confusing to me. I thought for sure something sinister was going to happen because it was so out of left field. Like, that does not happen. And if
Yeah.
it does, I want to hear about it.
It just went from like 0 to we're in a relationship now for some reason.
Can you imagine? Okay, let's do this for a second. So you're a 15-year-old boy and you have testosterone fucking jacked through your brain, through your balls. You're just really losing your mind on this horrible drug called testosterone. You have a smoke show of a neighbor. She is a good-looking girl, and her window faces your window.
Right.
And every night you're standing at your window with binoculars, and you're like, damn it, she just looks so pretty. And then one day she looks over and she catches you looking into her window, and
As she's taking off her bra.
obviously. And your heart leaps into your throat and you duck and you're like, oh no, everything's going to be awkward from now on about everything. Like, I can't even talk to her like a normal person. Fast forward one day, the next night, she knocks on your door at midnight comes in, puts a finger on your chest, and runs it down to your tum-tum. And you're like, and you instantly explode in your shorts. And then you're like, okay, could that ever happen? Is there a scenario where this happens?
That's what's so funny, because that is the scenario in every 15-year-old's head of like, yeah, this can happen. This is what I want to happen.
Yes.
I just want her to come over and just, offer sex.
Maybe if I take my shirt off like this at the pool in front, like I have to make sure I'm like in her
But not even that.
range of vision.
Just like that's even way beyond like the logic of just testosterone, of just sitting there and watching and thinking to yourself like, yes, I need this. I will will it to happen in my mind, because it's like the fuzzy logic of like, all right, if we're gonna really go deep, you're looking at this girl and you're gonna, I mean, they're very open about referring to the spank bank, in this movie. So your masturbatory logic is like, all right, what's the fantasy? What's gonna happen? Like, oh yeah, she just comes over and it's the easiest thing ever. I don't even have to treat her like a human being. She just treats herself like a sex object. And then somehow that thinking transfers over to real life, to where you think that's how women work.
Boy, that's a totally different. My experience was very different in that I worked things out. Like I was like, well, they're never going to just come over to me. That's just,
well, no,
it's
that's because you're smart. All you have to do is go to like some red pill subreddits, or the people that have the men that have so much entitlement that they're like, bitches, they just fuck other dudes, but they're not fucking me.
Like Hard Rock.
I'm so angry.
Like Hard Rock Nick.
Like Hard Rock Nick. And it's, you just like, no, that's not how it works, because they're human beings. And the same way how you look at women that are not attractive or don't have good personalities, and you're like, yuck, no, I'm not going to think about that at all.
Yeah.
That's what these hot women look at you like. Like, that just never answers.
Yeah, for me, I always was like, well, this has never happened in the past, and therefore it will continue not happening unless I manipulate their thought process about me. So here we go. Here, I hope you girls like 15-year-old man boobs, because here they come at the pool. I'm just going to hover over here in front of your field of view, and do you like that? Do you like what you see? And then they look away and act embarrassed, and then I put my shirt back on and never go in the pool.
Yeah, so I mean, it's weird. It just does not feel natural or real at all, but it feels like someone's fantasy of how that would work out.
It's very much how a porn starts. 100%.
Yeah, it is 100% how porn starts.
Yeah, and which brings us to the humor in Summer of '84. It doesn't hit great. It doesn't. It does not land.
No,
but there's lots of it.
Yeah,
there's lots of just like boys will be boys, like.
Yeah, especially with the one friend,
Tommy,
that's the super quippy guy.
Yeah,
just like, it doesn't work, because it's just very apparent that he is labeled as the quippy, sarcastic guy, and they're not really. I don't know. Maybe it's just the actor that played him, but it just seemed like he was delivering lines in a sitcom, and it wasn't really a character.
Yeah, no, this is 100%. This is absolutely right. It's one of the things that doesn't work about the movie is which is actually segues into a little bit that I want to talk about. The two big things that in this movie that didn't work for me were the pacing. It wasn't terrible, but it certainly could have been faster, and they could have kept it at the pace that it's at, right? At the pace that this movie presents itself as. They could have kept it there if they had thrown a little bit more to the audience in terms of fun visuals or intriguing dialogue. And the way they were trying to do it was with this juvenile humor that just didn't land. And that's the problem. They could keep this kind of slowish pace if it was really fun, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
or if it was more charming. I think that's the I can't put my finger on it, but when I watch Stranger Things, it's got a lot of charm.
Right,
like
exactly.
The kids are very, yeah, it's charming. You like watching them, and you like watching them interact, and it feels authentic.
Sitting down and watching it allows you to decompress.
Yeah. And this one, it's like, all right, well, let's get going here.
And
that's like the feeling I got from watching the kids interact.
There is some decompression with this because of the nostalgia, but it's not fully realized because the pacing is slow and there's not much else other than the nostalgia to kind of keep that going. The other thing that the other problem that I had with Summer of '84 was the suspense falls flat until the very last act of the movie, which means it's mostly a love story and a fun whodunit until the very last act. And it seems like there's about 4 acts to this movie, maybe 3. The jump scares are littered throughout this movie, and they do a thing that bothers me a lot. They make the jump scares exceedingly loud. And
there was one jump scare that I really liked.
Which one?
I wish I pulled the recording of it, but it's when they're in the basement and there's no lights on, and they've got the VHS recorder.
Oh yeah, I know
light,
the jump scare you're talking about.
And they go and there's like a hanging light bulb. And they're like, "Oh, a light bulb," and they pull it and it goes pop. Fuck. They're just, I don't know. Just the timing of that jump scare in particular was really good. Of like, oh hey, there's a. Oh, yeah, no, that's what it was. They're walking, and the kid hits the hanging bulb and freaks out. He's like,
he screams.
Ah! He's like, dude, it's just a light bulb. And they turn it on, and it pops. Ah!
Yeah, that's right. That one was actually fun and funny.
Yeah.
But the rest of them are kind of dangling in the wind. There's no setup for any of these jump scares. There's just like a person who shows up in the window that you're looking out of and is like, hey, how's it going? It's like...
Yeah,
and it's really loud. It's like so loud. That is from what I see, a common complaint in horror movies is jump scares that are too loud and no setup. And this has a couple of those.
Yeah, I think my main issue with this movie is the pacing, but also the change in tone was alarming.
Yeah, it was alarming.
Between like the first part of the movie and the ending. And if they had more connective tissue with the tone of the ending, this movie would have been a lot better. Like if they... So it's one of the reasons...
ramped into it.
It's one of the things that makes it so good is that it starts with the stakes high because Georgie gets his arm fucking ripped off by this monster. And you're like, oh, it's this type of movie. Like that's... The threat is communicated very early on, which is like you see how horrific this monster that they're chasing after is.
Does
and
Georgie get his arm ripped off, or is he killed? Is he eaten?
Both.
Okay.
I mean, you don't really survive very long as a 5-year-old when your arm's ripped off.
So he went to float right away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Spoilers from the first 10 minutes of it.
Yes. 30-year-old spoilers.
In this movie, all it is kids are disappearing and there's a serial killer on the loose.
Yeah.
Which maybe I'm just desensitized. That doesn't really communicate a lot of danger to me. I just assume serial killers are out there and they're sometimes pretty close.
It bothers me that everybody thinks that.
Yeah.
It really does bother me that everybody thinks that because I have to live with people who think that, I
mean, we grew up here in the shadow of I I'm like separated by like 2 people from people that have been murdered by
Wesley Allen Dodd.
Wesley Allen Dodd.
Yeah.
We're not that far from Ted Bundy's stomping grounds either.
Yeah, and the Green River Killer.
Yeah, so it's like there's people around my neighborhood that have gotten killed by serial killers back in the 80s, you know,
Right.
back in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, I played in the park that Dodd did his children
dirty deeds.
Did his children stalking in.
So, yeah, I mean, to me, the concept of a serial killer is out there is like, well, yeah, of course. There's a certain percentage of the population that are psychopaths.
Yeah.
But if you show me what this particular serial killer does to his victims and that he's close by, then that's more compelling than telling me over a news report that he's close to this town.
Yeah. He's in Cape May.
And that would have allowed you to have some connective tissue with the tone at the ending, because the tone at the ending gets gruesome like suddenly.
Yeah,
like it goes all of a sudden from like a nice wholesome Steven Spielberg thriller to, oh, we're in like Wes Craven territory.
My eyebrows are fully raised.
Yes.
Yeah. Which brings us to the next point of the serial killer, who, big spoilers for summer of '84. Mackie, the cop, who is suspected immediately of being the serial killer by Davey, the protagonist, is the serial killer. And he's played admirably by Rich Sommer, who has done a bunch of shows you've seen, but you probably, like, if I named it,
you'll know him from Mad Men.
Yeah, Mad Men.
He's a relatively prominent character on Mad Men.
Prominent.
Thank you.
Yeah, and he's a cop. He's the ultimate foil in this movie. They guess it's him early on, and which led me to believe, well, it can't be him. They guessed it's him, and then it's him. But it is it. But is it? It is.
Yeah,
it is him. As it turns out, it's him. But is it? Yes. Ultimately, the boys do their best to prove that it's Mackie until Mackie takes matters into his own hands as a police officer. He decides to find a patsy to pin the murders on and is celebrated on TV as the man who found the Cape May Slayer. So, when shit starts getting hot on the actual serial killer, on the cop, he goes, well, I got to do something. So I got to produce the Cape May Slayer. So he finds somebody, pins it on him, and is applauded for his efforts. What did you think of Rich Sommer and his performance in this?
I think he was a good choice for the killer because he looks so innocuous, and I was really impressed with him at the end.
Yeah,
but I would have liked a little bit more throughout the movie of like, and there's little glimpses of like, oh, he is really kind of conflicted
when he's handing out those Otter Pops to the kids in the
right
and a summer day.
Right, and it's, for me, seeing movies like this, it's kind of
feels like a lost chance, huh?
It's kind of a catch-22 because I just look at what I'm expecting, and I'm like, all right, well, it's definitely not him. Like that cop can't actually be the killer. It's going to be a switcheroo, and it's going to be someone close to those kids that they didn't suspect. That's what the normal movie would do. But then as time went on, they never really set up or had any other red herrings around who the killer is. And I'm like, all right, this is going to be pretty lame if they do that switcheroo.
Yeah.
And then they don't.
Right.
Then it's like, no, it's actually the guy, which is more interesting because I don't think that, especially like in an 80s style movie, you look at movies that would do that and it's never like the main guy because it's a learning moment.
Right.
Like it's like an after school special moment. It's
Scooby-Doo.
You shouldn't have judged him by his appearance or by what he did. You have a limited understanding of the world, and this one is, nope, you were totally right all along, and it's a good thing you never changed your mind or doubted yourself because he's definitely the killer and he killed your friends.
Yeah. To me, this is a bit of a missed opportunity because they could have done a very Silence of the Lambs sort of thing here where you don't get to where you see his perverted, weird lair, right? If you get to see his weird, horrible, like all his weird serial killer tendencies without seeing him throughout the whole movie, and you get to see that fucked up room that he keeps below his house, throughout the movie, and maybe his live victims that he's keeping in there, that would have ramped that tension really, really well, and would have been really disturbing from the start. You've been like, Jesus Christ. Anytime you get to know perversion or the serial killer or whatever it is, it's much more interesting than if you get to see him a shot of him handing Otter Pops out to kids on the street and then making a little bit of an angry face.
Yeah, I think even... I almost wonder, would it have been better if it was revealed within the first act that the cop was the killer? Like, I feel like I would have had more enjoyment out of the movie just because of the dramatic tension.
I mean, maybe
of the dramatic irony of the audience knows, and then the kids have to go through all this stuff of like finding out that, oh no, he's not. Here's the explanation for all those weird things that they're noticing. Like, here's why he's buying bags of dirt, and here's why he's buying a pickaxe, and like, oh, it's all explained. And then you as an audience is like, no, he's really the killer.
Yeah.
But in this, you're like, oh, okay, I guess could go either way. I guess I'll just wait till the ending till it's revealed. Yeah. And that's what I felt throughout the whole movie, you know?
Yeah, I would have liked to see... I do feel like there was a bit of a missed opportunity in there. Either you could have done what you suggest and, shown it was him, confirmed everyone's suspicions, and then built it that way. Could have done a Silence of the Lambs things with it. There's just a lot more that could have been. But instead, it focuses kind of on being a love story, which is, it's
like
fine.
A pretty lame love story.
Yeah.
More of just like a masturbatory fantasy story.
Would you like to change your score? It sounds like you're really down on this movie.
No, I think these are the problems that disappointed me about the movie. Other than that, like it's well made. It's got a well tested plot that there's ruts in the road that they followed and then made the choose your adventure decisions on. And they did it well. Yeah. The acting was good. There wasn't anything particularly distracting about the quality of the acting or the writing.
Yeah, you did mention that you didn't feel like you wasted your time watching this movie.
Yeah.
So, I agree with our critique of this so far. The capture of the fake Cape May Slayer kicks the boys into high gear, and they decide to break into Mackie's house, where they find then this is where the movie switches gears. They find a room full of a few of his victims, both alive and dead.
Right.
The dead one is decomposing in a tub, and it is alarming to see. Yeah. And the alive one, he's been kept prisoner next to a tub with a dead person in it, a rotting person in it.
Right.
For who knows how long, a couple weeks at least. And it's just a dark room, and it's super fucked up. And they realize that, all the pictures of all the family in Rich Summers' house, that's not his family. Those are the pictures of the families of all his victims.
Right.
So it kind of kicks into high sinister gear. And like I said, this is where the movie flips the switch. Mackie goes on the lam and eventually grabs Davy and Caleb, the large lad, and plays a big game of manhunt with them. So he like knocks them both out, and then he brings them into the woods, and then he sets them free. And then he does the "I'm coming to get you, here I come, you don't want me to get you" kind of thing to him, which I mean. That's legitimately terrifying. If someone were to do that to you, to bring you to an island or something like that.
Yeah, even I texted David after I watched the movie that as a fat kid, it was the most horrifying concept of you. A killer is after you.
A fit killer.
A fit killer. Well, not even super fit, but like
He runs.
He's a cop. He runs. A fit killer is after you, and you're a fat kid, and your friend is super scrawny and
faster than you.
Yeah, it's like, well, I'm fucked.
Yeah, you don't got to outrun the bear. You just got to outrun the the closest guy to you.
Okay, that's a frightening idea. So, anyways, I mean, to this movie's credit,
shocking.
This is the best part of the movie, and the redeeming quality of this movie is that
at the end your eyebrows go, what?
That Mackie does catch Fat Kid and does just unceremoniously slit his throat.
Yeah, who, by the way, throughout this movie, Caleb, the fat kid, is the one you care about most. Like, he's the most human of all these characters, aside from maybe the vanilla
In terms
Davey.
of his backstory, it's the best sold backstory and the most, like, I mean, I guess pathetic would be a correct word for it. Of just like, you really feel sorry for him and his position with his mom.
And then the direction of this movie just tosses him in the bin, man.
Yeah.
Like, they just unceremoniously crumple him up and throw him in the bin.
It was the most compelling... The ending that they chose was the most compelling option for... They kill the fat kid, and then Mackie captures the protagonist, and instead of killing him says, like, I'm just going to make your life miserable because I'm not going to kill you, and I'll always be out there, and you'll always know I'm out there, and then I'm going to come back and kill you.
Yeah.
That's like...
It's a truly terrifying thing to say that to someone. To be like, the reason I'm leaving you alive and leaving here uncaught is so that I can plant this seed of terror in your head.
Yeah.
Of, I'm coming after you some point in your life, and I'm going to fucking murder you. And you'll never know when that's going to happen.
Yeah, that being said, that being one of the best ending options they could do, I wish they had milked it more.
I do too.
Especially the, what's his name, Corey? Caleb?
Yeah.
He's the fat kid.
Yeah.
I don't want to keep saying fat kid. Caleb, his death just felt like it was kind of, they should have dragged it out for another, like, 20 seconds, you know?
Yeah.
Of just struggle and, like, the killer toying with him or doing, like, a little monologue or something to where you're there and you're like, they wouldn't kill Caleb.
No,
they're not going to kill Caleb. Like, he's his poor mom. Like, they would never do that. That's not an option. Then, whoa, oh my gosh, they went there. But it gave you no time to really feel that. It was like, oh no, he caught him. Oh, he's dead.
Yeah, they did. There was no soaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Soaking.
What is soaking again? Can we describe? Was that from Adam Carolla?
No, that was your question to me of do Mormons do this? And the answer is unequivocally no.
Soaking. Oh man, do you want to get into soaking?
To me, it has to be an urban legend because no one would do this. But soaking is the idea, and for some reason, it's
okay.
tagged.
But by the way, before we get into soaking, that's the end of Summer of '84 talk. We're now moving on to a few different things, one of which is soaking.
Okay, well, first let's give our final recommendations.
Yeah, let's give our final recommendations for Summer of '84. Summer of '84 was a fun movie that any casual fan of horror would enjoy. If you get done with Stranger Things and you feel like you need more 80s nostalgia, this is a great movie to scratch that itch. I would say I would warn you against raising your volume on your stereo system too high because the jump scares in this are loud and that does bother people. That's my recommendation. What about you?
Yeah, I think if you've got a hankering for a kind of middle of the road, passable serial killer mystery thing, go for it.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, there's lots of bad serial killer movies too.
Oh yeah.
Like if you like serial killer movies told from the perspective of people that, are on the mystery, then yeah, it's a good watch.
Yeah. So back to Soaking.
Soaking. So this is and I love that it's like attributed to Mormons, because it's like, okay, only Mormons are that wholesome and stupid that they would try to do this.
It has nothing to do with being wholesome and stupid. That although that may be
Or
a
desperate.
small part of it. I think Soaking, the reason the myth exists is because there's so many other myths about Mormonism that are unbelievable and true.
I don't know about that.
I mean, it's just a weird set of beliefs.
Well, yes, that's true.
So,
But soaking is the practice of, since Mormons can't have premarital sex, the idea is, it doesn't count. This is a loophole. It's kind of like the butthole loophole.
The poop hole loophole.
The loophole is
made famous by the Catholics.
You just put it in. Then you just don't move.
And then you let it soak.
It doesn't count as sex because you're not like humping.
Right.
And you're just letting it sit there, and that's called soaking.
So to add to this, the further part of the myth is that you get your friends to jump, so you lay on her on the bed, let it soak, and then get your friends to jump on the bed. So that
Oh god. This is an added level.
So that now, well, I mean, we were just sitting there innocently soaking, and then sex happened because my friends had to jump on the bed at the same time.
Yeah.
But it wasn't us. We didn't provide the physical gyration necessary to get the act done.
And people that believe that this happens fundamentally don't understand the mind of of someone that's bought into the idea of like, I can't have sex.
But they kind of do, though, because of the poop hole loophole with Catholics.
I'm not sure that that's a thing either.
Oh, that is a thing.
I mean, the difference is like there's real repercussions and like mechanisms to catch that.
The difference is the Mormon God is angry and vengeful, and the Catholic God is just kind of like Crom. He just sits there and he doesn't care.
I mean, I guess I can't speak for Catholics, but from being Mormon for, most of my life, I look at it as, what would you absolutely draw the line at? And penetration is like, that's not even in the books at all. That's like, for example, in the singles ward, the singles congregation where I met my wife, the bishop gave a talk where he was saying, where is the line? A lot of the singles are asking where the line is, and mind you, this is not like high school students. This is like people graduated, in their 20s to 30. I think the cutoff is like age 30 or something like that. So these are not children that he's talking to. But this is, inquiring minds want to know. So he's like, all right, people are asking where the line is. Where
is it?
Where do you know that you've gone too far? And his answer was, if you feel sexual excitement.
Wow. I mean, I feel sexual excitement right now. Maybe just because we're recording in the nude, but
so if you kiss the girl and you feel sexual excitement, then you've gone too far.
God,
like that's
Lord.
You shouldn't go there until marriage.
Life has to be fucking boring as shit.
Can you imagine like how bad of guidance that is? But also, like, how impossible that would be the only way you could do that is if you were gay.
To ignore our throbbing biological urges.
If you were gay and acting straight, that's the only possible way that you could interact directly with the opposite sex and not become sexually excited, not even aroused.
That's
just
enough, Bryce.
excited.
You're exciting me right now.
Even then,
Let's get on to hot poop talk.
Okay.
Can you share with us a little update about like how the poop came? Did it come? Are you still constipated? What's the deal? Because let me set this up. Last week, Bryce hadn't pooped. When we recorded at this time last week, Bryce hadn't pooped in 7 days.
no, that's not true.
Well, he had little deer poops, little poops throughout the day, but not he had not had a satisfying movement for roughly 7 days, and now we're 7 days past that. What are we at now? What happened?
So I think we're through the deepest, darkest part of the woods.
Cool.
This isn't really interesting, is it?
Did you take a picture of the poop?
I didn't take a picture.
Was it big?
There's no gigantic poop, but I've become slightly more regular, and I don't have like vicious cramping.
How did you achieve this victory?
I just took some laxatives.
Oh, okay.
I don't think I'm not 100% out of the woods. It's still touch and go, but I'm feeling better.
Still touching.
It's a waiting game.
Also, last night you sent me a video of a man vaping and said that's you. And this man was
that is not what I said.
This man was
very specifically
doing big vape clouds that were amazing, and like doing moving his hands around the vape and making it all like sculpted and all this weird shit. And he's like, "Do you do that or something?"
No. This is the exact text. I said, my greatest wish for you is to become a vape wizard like this guy.
Okay.
And sent the video.
Which confused me to no end, because like I was like, why me? That's like so specific. And then what did you say? What did you say when I asked you why would you wish this on me?
You said, why would you wish this on me? Like, why me specifically? And I said, you're the only person I know that vapes that I respect.
This is a lot of Mormon situations going on in this episode. Bryce has apparently seen me vape.
He's a very recreational, like rare vapor.
Right.
Like just not even a thing at all. But I thought in my mind's eye, what if David got super into vaping to where he was like manipulating big fat vape donuts in the sky and like making hearts out of them and just really like modifying his vape pen.
For some reason that offended me. A little bit, not a lot, just enough to be like, what are you talking about? Like,
I know,
crazy.
Because you watch that video and your first question is, who is this guy?
Yeah.
What?
So weird to see people like snapping their fingers next to like to like an O-ring and then making it like, I don't know. It's just like, what the fuck are you doing?
Just, blowing out fat vape O's.
Yeah.
And making them look like jellyfish and manipulate them. It's something. It's especially the part where he's like blowing out and pushing his hands behind the smoke to like push it out. It's like there's something.
There's a lot of theatrics involved.
Like he's a vape bender.
Yeah, the vape bender. So with that, let's move to Lifetime movie or horror movie.
All right. Lifetime movie or horror movie is a pretty simple game. David will read a description of the plot of a movie, and I have to guess whether it is a Lifetime movie or a horror movie.
You can play along at home if Bryce is kind enough to give you a 5 to 10 beat following the question. Sometimes he just goes, "Oh, it's definitely a horror movie." Like
Okay.
right, like almost before I finish.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so here we go. First movie description. A lonely young woman traumatized by a difficult childhood and her increasingly desperate attempts to connect with people around her is sent to into a murderous tailspin.
Oh, wow. This is a good one.
That's a good one, right?
Wow.
I saw that one and I was like, God damn, that's fucking perfect.
A murderous tailspin. That could be interpreted so many ways. I'm going to say that is a Lifetime movie.
Ooh, I'm very sorry. That is a horror movie.
Oh, wow.
I was like, this is the holy grail of movie descriptions. That is May from 2002, a horror movie.
Damn. All right.
Okay, next one. We got a teacher is harassed by a group of snotty, popular cheerleaders who think they can get away with anything. However, the teacher has no intention of taking their rude behavior.
Wow, this is hard. It really could go either way.
Yeah.
But I think I'm leaning more towards horror movie because I don't... Yeah, I'm going to say horror movie.
Wrong.
Damn.
That's a Lifetime movie. But the funny part about this movie is the title. Listen to the title. This is The Texas Cheerleader Scandal. So it's almost a horror movie title. The Texas Cheerleader Scandal from 2008. That's a TV movie.
Yeah, that one's hard because it sounds like a Lifetime movie plot, but I don't think that a Lifetime movie would focus so much on cheerleaders specifically. That sounds like an exploitational thing.
Yeah,
for
it
horror
really
movies,
does.
but it's not.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Damn. 0 for 2.
Yeah, you gotta pull it together these last three.
Man.
Okay. A woman, after being left at the altar, has a brief liaison with a handsome stranger on a plane, which ultimately puts her and everyone else on the flight in terrible danger.
This sounds so much like a Lifetime movie, but also like Red Eye.
It does sound a lot like a horror movie. Are you actually guessing the movie?
I'm actually guessing the movie. Is it Red Eye?
I'm sorry. This is a Lifetime movie.
No! Fuck! Damn. I don't think she was left at the altar in Red Eye. That's the part that I thought I could pull myself out. Fuck, now I've lost. I've lost all. All right, so now if I guess the only way I can win is if I guess the title of one of these movies.
Right. You got it. So that is Nonstop. 2013
God damn.
TV Lifetime movie. Okay, this next one's short and sweet. Two American newlyweds in Paris experience a love so strong it almost devours them.
That's bullshit.
That's the after we do this game, you can look this up. That is the description on
That
IMDb.
is bullshit. That's like a love that almost devours them.
Two American newlyweds in Paris experience a love so strong it almost devours them.
You got to give me another clue, like a date or
2001.
a love so strong and almost devours them. Man, let's see. So it's been, what have we got so far? It's been horror movie, Lifetime.
Yes.
Oh, man, would you do 3 Lifetimes in a row?
I don't know.
I'm going to say horror.
You are correct. You got one.
What was it?
Congratulations. That's Trouble Every Day from, as I said, 2001.
Trouble Every Day.
Okay.
Who's that starring? Is that like even a recognizable?
I could not tell you.
All right.
Okay. The final movie description for Lifetime movie or horror movie. When popular and beautiful cheerleader Stacy is stabbed to death, who could have done it? It could have been an asocial goth girl named Monica. It could have been an asocial goth girl, Monica. It could have been angst-ridden Jill, or maybe it was the plain girl nobody suspected.
All right. I got to try to pull it out to win. So, cheerleader is stabbed to death. See, I've never seen this movie, but I feel it could be The Craft. But I don't want to say that because I don't think there's an overt stabbing to set off the plot.
Poker face, poker face. Nah.
Is that a clue?
No. I'm just showing you my poker face. Nah, got nobody.
All right. I think it's a Lifetime movie.
You are correct.
Yeah.
This was not a total loss. That was A Friend to Die For, 1994 Lifetime movie. Really pulling out the... that was...
2 for 5. That was rough.
That's a 25-year-old Lifetime movie.
Wow, that is a... Those first 3 are... Man, that was a golden list. You've really come into your own. With
I discovered a treasure
horror
trove.
movies.
I know how to do it now.
Wow.
So with that, let's move on to horror movie news.
This just
Once again, thank you very much, King of All Badgers. I love you for making our drops. I like that one.
Yeah, that was great.
So, The Haunting of Hill House has been renewed for season 2. Oh boy, oh boy.
Woot woot.
Everybody's going to be excited about that. And I've made some guesses as to how they're going to do season 2 because I suspected it was going to happen long ago. As soon as I watched it, I was like, they're going to do a season 2.
Well, yeah, they set it up for... I mean, I'm amazed that people didn't understand that that's what they were doing with the ending. Like, some people were like, oh, what about the ending, though? And I'm like, well, obviously, they're setting it up as an anthology series.
Right. Yeah, clearly this is going to be about all the other ghosts, all the stories of all the other ghosts in the house.
Right.
But everybody I talked to about it, they're like, I don't know. Looks like it's kind of over to me.
I don't know about that.
I don't know. Seems... So the streaming giant Netflix has ordered a new installment in what they're calling the Haunting Anthology, meaning the next chapter of the horror series will feature an entirely new story and new characters from those seen in the first season. Shocking. That's pretty much exactly how I called it. In addition, Netflix has entered into a multi-year overall television deal with series creator Mike Flanagan and executive producer Trevor Macy. Under the deal, Flanagan and Macy will produce new TV projects exclusively for Netflix. So that's exciting.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that because I really love Mike Flanagan, but I hope that he's not like turning away other movie projects to do series for Netflix.
I mean,
because he's made some of the best like consistent horror movies of the last decade.
I think the way they do this kind of stuff is very similar to how like they do comic books, right? So they get a notable writer to do the first run, the first arc.
Yeah.
So they get some big, Bendis or something like that to do the first arc of a new run of whatever it is, Amazing Spider-Man or whatever. Yeah. And then they bring in the pinch hitters after that once they got the subscribership there. So, I mean, then they just throw him an executive producer credit or something like that. And he's in on the pre-pitch and then he okays it and then walks away or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like he was the actual director for the series for Haunting.
Yeah, I believe he was.
So the other thing that you didn't mention, they talked about what the topic of the season 2 is going to be, and that it's going to be an adaptation of the Turning of the Screw.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned...
Which is interesting because Steven Spielberg is coming out with a remake of The Turn of the Screw in a movie format. So it's kind of interesting that there's going to be 2 remakes at the same time.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
So
we'll see how that goes. I trust Mike Flanagan to put his level of goodness on it.
So, also in horror movie news, Shudder is already the go-to source for watching horror movies, but the streaming service is expanding its reach into the audio world as well. So, bad news for us. Last year, Shudder launched the Video Palace audio drama, and this year they're launching 3 new podcasts that should be must-listen experiences for diehard horror fans. You got Eli Roth's History of Horror, Uncut. You got She Kills, hosted by genre legend Adrienne Barbeau, who was in Creepshow, which we reviewed a little while ago. And finally, you have the one that I'm most excited for, Visitations, with Elijah Wood and Daniel Noah. So a quick rundown of those. Eli Roth's History of Horror Uncut premieres, I think it already premiered. It premieres February 22nd and is a companion to the television series Eli Roth's History of Horror. This Shudder original podcast takes things to a new level with the full uncut interviews that Eli Roth and his producers conducted for the show. Over the course of 12 episodes, Eli Roth's History of Horror Uncut will offer listeners hours of never-before-heard candid conversations with Roth and Stephen King, Edgar Wright, Quentin Tarantino, Diablo Cody, Brian Fuller, and a bunch of people who you don't care about quite so much, except for maybe Bruce Campbell, Rob Zombie, and Josh Hartnett.
I was going to say, you better care about Josh Hartnett.
Hartnett. You also got She Kills. The rundown on that one is experience the genre through the female gaze as She Kills, hosted by actor, author, and movie icon Adrienne Barbeau of The Fog, Creepshow, and Escape from New York. She Kills is a Shudder original podcast and is about women in horror. So that'll be a good one. And then, as I mentioned before, the one that I'm most excited for is Visitations with Elijah Wood and Daniel Noah. Boundary-breaking indie production company Spectre Vision partners with Daniel Noah, Josh Waller, Lisa Wallen, and Elijah Wood, and has given the world game-changing horror films like A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night and Mandy. Now, Wood and Noah invite listeners to join them as they drop in on some of their most creative friends and colleagues for casual conversations at locations of their subjects' choosing. At their homes, on set, or in their personal workshops in the 10-episode Shudder original podcast, Visitations. So they...
so that's all audio too? Are any of these video?
I imagine, yeah. So there is a podcast section on Shudder that you can actually watch recorded podcasts. So it would not surprise me if these were recorded as well. I should say visually recorded. Episodes will feature Anna Lily Amirpour, some names I can't pronounce, John Landis, Dan Harmon will be a good one, and Flying Lotus.
Yeah, so that's interesting. The She Kills will be interesting. I watched there's a documentary on Shudder called what's it called? It's the black horror documentary, horror noir or noir horror, or something like that. Yeah, horror noir, and it just kind of tells the history of African American depiction or involvement in horror movies, and it was really good. It was really interesting. Dude, it's like I would definitely suggest, if you have Shudder, or even if you don't, if you want to get the free trial, that's almost worth the price of admission, because it's a really good rundown of the history of one part of the genre that really kind of opened my eyes to, like, wow, this is...
Yeah, as a demographic that consumes horror, like, as far as demographics that consume horror goes, the black demo is huge. Yeah. Like, they just... typically, like, it's something you're looking for your movie.
And just realizing that, early on, not surprisingly, the depictions of black people in 20s horror movies was either they are the villain,
right,
or like in Birth of a Nation,
either
they are the villain or they're the ridiculous foil of like, ooh, oh no, boop, boop, boop.
Like the guy in Sleepaway Camp.
Yeah, but even then, early on, there was legitimate like African American film and like horror movies that were made back in the black and white silent era that you just don't know about.
Yeah.
But they're very important in terms of like African American filmmaking. And then it goes into, you know, because to me, if I was, I didn't know anything about it, I would just be like, oh yeah, I mean, the whole trope of the black person gets killed first is like, yeah, that's the funny thing that gets referenced over and over again, and that must have been just a huge trope for history.
It is the ultimate trope. Like that's almost the rule in horror movies.
Yeah. Just exploring how it's expanded, and it doesn't feel like anything's particularly like solved yet, but definitely once they get out, it's like, okay, this is an important moment, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, the two important moments are, you know, Candyman, which is, you know, an African-American horror movie, definitely, and then Get Out, which is, you know, a new...
And next month, Us.
Yeah, next month, Us, which we'll be reviewing. Anyways, yeah, get Shudder. It's got lots of good content, original content on there.
Enter HMT at checkout. Hole in the Ground, a new indie movie from A24, is being reviewed as utterly terrifying. It's a horror film from Ireland. The Hole in the Ground manages to feel fresh and original while going through a checklist of tried and tested horror tropes. Don't move to a secluded rural house. Don't go into the dark forest. Definitely don't do either of those things if you're a single mom with a young child. Director and co-writer Lee Cronin uses these classic ideas to great effect, weaving a disturbing tale around a mother's love for her son. The titular hole is not a metaphor. When young mother Sarah moves to a new home with her son, Chris, she comes across something terrifying and unexplained in a nearby forest. Chasing Chris through the trees, she comes to an abrupt halt at the edge of a vertigo-inducing sinkhole.
Hell to the no, to the no, 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 no. Hell, no, no, to the no, no. Hell to the no, no. To the no, no, no. Hell to the no, no.
That's what you should say if you come to a deep, dark hole in Ireland.
This is notable because Bryce and I have had a long-standing feud about the dangerousness of sinkholes.
Yeah, I
Bryce
maintain that out of all the natural disasters that can befall man on Earth, the most terrifying is sinkholes.
And I maintain that it is definitely earthquakes, because there's no way out of an earthquake, and it's larger. The epicenter is much larger. A sinkhole, yeah, you can't get out if you're in the sinkhole. But if you're a couple feet to the right, you're okay.
Okay, here's my case for sinkholes. Yes. Earthquakes are larger. They create more destruction. Absolutely. But
more deaths.
But you can feel the oncoming of it, or you can be warned that it's going to happen.
A similar thing can happen with a sinkhole. The ground can start to give, and then you can be like, oh, I better vacate this premises.
Yeah, I don't know. The earthquake, you can get in the doorway, you can get under a table, you can go just out in an open field, and you'll be fine. Like there's ways to escape. A sinkhole, the earth opens up and swallows you. Yeah, underneath your feet.
I mean, I mean, in the extreme scenario, yes. In the extreme scenario with the sinkhole, it happens immediately. In the slow, boring version of a sinkhole, no, that doesn't happen at all. You just walk away. Same thing with a small earthquake versus a big earthquake. The difference is magnitude. Earthquakes affect more people, kill many more, and I don't know, man. I just feel, and there's no way to.
There's something about a sinkhole of you being there and then being gone.
I don't know how I am still arguing this years later, but here we are. The debate rages on. Let us know what you think is more terrifying, earthquakes or sinkholes.
And I look at the after effects of an earthquake and oh yeah, look at all those buildings that are down. That's a lot of damage. But I look at a sinkhole and it's a black hole where no light can escape.
It's garbage day!
Anyways.
Finally, John Krasinski tweeted that he was starting production on A Quiet Place 2, which he wrote and will direct as he did the first. So everyone say yay!
Yay!
So that's good news. Nobody else at the helm, just good old John Krasinski. Just old Jim having babies with Pam.
Mm-hmm.
Lovely.
They should like just have a hard left turn and have it have Dwight come in on the movie.
Beat farmer.
Yeah.
Dwight would actually be in the scenario. Yeah. In the scenario of A Quiet Place, Dwight would be indispensable.
He would.
He knows how to farm. He has great survival skills. He knows Krav Maga. You know, I mean,
yeah.
I'd take Dwight over, definitely over Jim. I mean, obviously over Jim.
Right.
So with that, thank you very much for listening to our show, even through the hot poop talk and the soaking talk. Make sure to share us with a friend if you can. It's the only way we can grow. Please.
You know what? I'm gonna add on to that. Share with a friend because we know you can.
We know you can.
It's not if you can. Just do it.
Just do it, man. You fucking look at you sitting there,
just
listening to free podcasts. Just you got blood on your hands, buddy.
You got a thumb. You got a phone.
Just
share that shit.
You fucking idiot.
You idiot.
Also, enter to get a free month of trial at of a Shudder.
You fucking piece of shit.
You shitty person. Make sure to enter HMT at checkout at shudder.com and get 30-day free trial of that service. It's really fun. You can watch Summer of 84 on there. Also, make sure to bookmark our Amazon Associates link. It's at the top of our page, horrormovietalk.com. Special thanks to everyone who shares our shit. And with that, y'all have a great week now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
We love you.